Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Schatz, for holding this hearing, and to our panel of witnesses for sharing your expertise. And I want to particularly welcome Bob DeBrew, fellow Wisconsinite from the Madison-based TDS Telecom. I'm really pleased to have a Wisconsin voice at the table today. And thank you also for your membership on the FCC's Broadband Deployment Advisory Committee. I also want to associate myself, Mr. Chairman, with remarks of my colleagues earlier during this hearing who have emphasized the need for dedicated funding for broadband as part of any infrastructure measure that moves forward. Like a number of my colleagues on this subcommittee from both sides of the aisle, I wrote to President Trump urging him to include dollars specifically for broadband, and particularly in rural America. And while I'm disappointed that he chose not to do so, the Senate Democrats, in putting forward our own infrastructure proposal, did include broadband. And I think as Congress advances on a infrastructure package that we must address this critical need for our communities. Now, we're not starting from scratch regarding federal support for broadband deployment. In fact, we have current or historic programs at the FCC, USDA, and Commerce that have supported expansion of broadband, including in rural areas. These can inform how we make future investments. So, Mr. DeBrew, TDS Telecom is a significant recipient of funds under the Phase 2 of the FCC's Connect America Fund, specifically through its Alternative Connect America Model Program. And I'm wondering if you can tell us how you believe your company's experience with this program should inform how any new resources are employed with the goal of ensuring the most effective deployment of broadband to areas that are currently unserved or underserved.
Well, thank you, Senator Baldwin, and thank you for, apparently you have a lot of clout, because not only was I put on the BDAC, but I was made chair of a work group. So it only tripled my work, but that was okay. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that the FCC got right. I think their programs have evolved, and I think the accountability that's built into their programs, and especially the certainty. I mean, it's difficult, I think, for companies under the old universal service programs where how much money you got depended on a lot of things like how much your neighbors spent on their programs, and things went up and down to really make predictable investments. With the ACAM program, and now with some of the improvements that hopefully are coming with the legacy program, it'll be easier to have more certainty in terms of how many dollars you have. And with the ACAM program, the number of locations are specified, and with each extra dollar that goes into there, the number of locations that get higher speed broadband go up. So it's a program that is scalable in that sense, that you can feed more money into it and you automatically get more broadband. And at the end of the day, you have to report to USAC how many locations you served, including the exact location within feet of where those locations are. So USAC is collecting that data, and they will then know going forward what is served. So the program, it did utilize the 477 data in order to make sure that we weren't building duplicate networks, and I think that worked in the context of that program. People have pointed out issues with the maps, but I think at least that was a good starting point. So I think those are the types of features, I think, that are critical that any programs, if money goes to RUS or to NTIA, in terms of and in addition, having specified dollars set out for infrastructure specifically.
Thank you. Last year, I had the opportunity to meet with a variety of community stakeholders in different regions of the state of Wisconsin, Washburn County, Greene County, and Eagle River, the community in Vilas County, Wisconsin, which is in the far northern part of my home state. One thing I heard from participants in this particular roundtable was their frustration that the local and state planning efforts like the one they undertook in Eagle River which help identify the unique needs of an area and how best to address them, aren't necessarily taken into account when distributing federal supports for broadband deployment. So Mayor Resnick, do you agree that there should be more engagement with local and state planning processes? And if so, what steps can Congress take to ensure local communities are a part of the broadband deployment process?
Well, thank you, Senator, and thank you for your support of so many members of my community. It's tremendously important that local governments and counties, cities have a seat at the table. I appreciate being invited here to be part of this panel, but so often in this discussion we are not. And you know, look at, for example, and no offense to my colleague at the table who's part of the BDAC, and we appreciate his work on that, but it's the ratio of industry members to local government members is 10 to 1. They drafted a model code for states without the input of any single local official. So we do not feel right now that the FCC is serious about engaging in dialogue with local governments, and we think that that's going to result in bad broadband policy, frankly. So we do any efforts that you could make to try and ensure that local governments have more of a voice and a seat at the table, we would appreciate. Also, you cannot forget, you know, we've heard throughout the hearing today about the frustration of getting affordable broadband available in every area, rural areas, inner city areas, et cetera. And the federal programs apparently are not providing enough incentive to make the business case for the private investment that the industry is looking for. But municipal broadband does have a way of solving the needs of their communities. Local governments are very good being creative, of coming up with ways of solving the needs of their communities. Mayors like to get things done. And if a problem exists in available broadband for my community, we're going to get it done. If we have to build a municipal network to do it, we're going to try and undertake efforts to do it. So when you're talking about ways to engage local governments and make sure that the needs of our communities are met, we should not forget about the possibility of municipal broadband systems. Too often, we are preempted from doing so. Especially at the state level. There's a situation or an example of, I think, Wilson, North Carolina, where they actually passed a referendum. The taxpayers supported building a municipal network. It was built, it was operating, it was providing great service, and because of state law, they had to discontinue using it. So there are plenty of examples like that where municipalities and counties want to take the effort and spend their residents' funds on these networks, and state law simply does not allow them. So if there's something that you could do with respect to that, we would appreciate it.